Buenos dias. Good morning. I hope you are well, staying positive and focused on what you can control. Welcome to Cafecito con HACE and happy Women's History Month. This year, HACE's theme is Avanza, advancing positive impact where momentum means opportunity, where we are showcasing impact on advancing employee equity, on advancing careers, and advancing social responsibility. Join us for our annual summit on April 25th and 26th, where we will be highlighting these themes throughout our tracks and throughout the year. Drop in where you are tuning in from. Leverage this opportunity to network, to connect. Use the comment section to connect and meet with one another and ask your questions. My name is Patricia Mota. I serve as president and CEO of HACE, a national organization whose mission since 1982 is to positively impact workplaces by cultivating the community of Latino talent, providing the insight, access, and support to be successful in their careers. A couple announcements before we jump in with our special guest today. We have our upcoming Colores program, which the application can be found on our website. This is a leadership development program catered to our LGBTQIA+ community. Also, next week, we've got 2 webinars on how to best leverage our career center. So it's Avanza Your Career with HACE webinar. And the second webinar, it's also taking place next week, is featuring Latinas in business and how to scale your business. And so be sure to check our website. I know my colleagues are also dropping that information in the chat so that you can check it out, share it, and just leverage all the resources that are available at HACE for you, for our comunidad. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming our guest today, Alejandro Orestano, who is the Vice President of International Markets Americas at Discover Global Network. Buenos dias. Good morning, Alejandro. ¿Cómo estás?
Buenos dias. Good morning, Patricia. Thank you so much for the invite, for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today.
We're excited for this conversation, Alejandro, pero first thing is first, you're on Cafecito con HACE. How do you like your cafecito or your cafe or your morning beverage of choice?
I like my cafecito. I like an Americano, black Americano. And I don't know if you know why it's called an Americano. Back in World War II, the soldiers that were stationed in Italy complained about the espresso being too strong, right? So they started to watering down the espresso, and that's what an Americano is. It's just really kind of like an espresso shot with a little bit more water. So that's how I like it.
Wow, diverse preferences and a fun fact for us to know, because I didn't know that. Everybody joining in, please join us in the chat what you're drinking, enjoying this morning, or your morning beverage of choice. Alejandro, tell us a little bit about your cultural, your professional background. How did you get to this role that you lead at Discover today?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Mexico. So, definitely, grew up with all the Mexican traditions. Also on my dad's side of the family, it's an Italian family. So, 2 cultures clashing together and very strong cultures, both of them, like very family oriented. So definitely that's shaped kind of, the person who I am. And I moved here to the US 17 years ago. And I'm raising 3 kids here in the US. So, and my wife's Chilean, lived a long time in Venezuela, Hungarian parents. So we're a little bit of a mix of all types of cultures. And, I joke with my kids that we have chilaquiles and arepas for breakfast. And then, during the lunch, we had barbecue and Chilean barbecue. We have tiramisu for dessert. So yeah, we're kind of, a mix of all of these cultures. So I went to college back in Mexico. And again, I moved to the US to pursue business school. I was raised by a family of entrepreneurs. So kind of, business was always kind of, probably the same way that kind of the doctor's children or like an accountant children's have, these conversations, during lunch with their parents. I did have those conversations with my father. So, business was always something that I was really passionate about. And so I worked in marketing for a little while, retail, consumer packaged goods. And then when I moved to the US, I started to pursue a career in financial services. I worked in investment banking, private banking, and asset management as well. And my last stint has been in payments. So I joined Discover 10 years ago, managing some of the markets in Latin America. And now I have the pleasure and honor to lead the Americas organization.
That's amazing. We have a Mex-Italian on our asset team as well. And so I know a lot of Mexicanos, and so we have to ask, ¿dónde en Mexico?
Yeah, but I'm Mexican, right? It's really interesting, especially
Where
when
did you grow up in Mexico? Because I know
Mexico
we have so many
City,
Mexicanos.
Mexico City.
The wonderful. So shout out to all our folks. I know that are tuning in. We have a lot of Mexicanos that are, and myself included, right? A daughter of immigrants from Mexico that follow ACE and engage with ACE. But I also want to give a shout out to all of our Hola friends, right? I know we've had a long-standing partnership with Discover and Hola over the years, and so appreciative of that, and to have amazing leaders like yourself that engage with our members. And so those of you tuning in, tell us about your background, engage in the chat, get your questions ready for Alejandro here. Alejandro, tell us a little bit about your work. So you talked about all of the diversity in your own family, right? And tell us about the work that you do in international markets. What is it like to lead a diverse team, and how do you balance the varied perspectives that you get to ensure that the team is successful?
So let me tell you a little bit about kind of the network side, right? So we are part of kind of Discover Financial Services, which you probably all know as a bank, as a credit card issuer, but we have much other different products. The network, what we do is make sure that our cards are able to transact in merchants, restaurants, hotels, wherever you go, not only in the US, but also internationally. So we partner with banks and financial institutions all over the world to make sure that these cards are accepted. But we also allow some of these banks and financial institutions to also issue cards on our network and leverage the infrastructure that we built throughout all these years. My team specifically, what we do is manage the relationship with some of those companies here in the Americas continent that either accept our cards or issue our cards. What is it like to lead a diverse team? It's like super fun. It's really interesting because obviously we also interact a lot with our clients, and most of our clients are in Latin America. So I lead a very diverse team, majority women. Most of us speak Spanish, of course, but I also have Portuguese speakers, and of course all of us have to speak English. And I have a team of very diverse individuals with different backgrounds. I think the biggest thing about leading a diverse team is making sure that everyone feels comfortable with who they are and what they bring to the table. And we obviously have the honor and the pleasure to work for a company that's very focused and very invested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. You cannot lead a team if you don't build a team, right? So I do take a lot of time in making sure what we call the team building events, right? And team building activities, and making sure that we know each other, that we interact with each other inside of work, but also outside of work, that we get to know each other as persons. Being Hispanics, obviously, that's something that's very important for us to have, personal connections with the people that we deal with on a regular basis, not only us as a team, but also with our clients, right? And making sure that we're flexible, right? That we embrace other cultures and other ways of, doing things and looking at things. We go out there, we operate in the world out there, especially in Latin America, but then we have to come back and make sure that we are successful in corporate America, that we make sure that we continue to operate in the way that, we're going to be able to bring the best out of our team inside of the company.
That's wonderful. You talked a lot about how fun it is, right, in terms of the team and the makeup, but also with that, ensuring that you're really getting to know, because we are spending a lot of time with one another during our working hours. And so we want to make sure that we're building and cultivating those relationships, right, with the team members as well. And so We've got some comments going on. We got some new people joining us on the Cafecito, so welcome. And I'm glad to see won't be your last. And so tell us, we are celebrating Women's History Month, and you know, you as an ally and as a supporter, you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of women on the team that you lead. What have been some of the women figures that have shaped, inspired, or influenced you as a leader?
Well, I mean, I could go for hours on this topic, right? I mean, you know, starting with kind of like, you know, obviously, you know, my mom and kind of, you know, the people that have, raised me. My mom's a teacher. Teachers are, I would say, one of the most noble professions. You know, they're helping parents, you know, raise the citizens of this world. So, you know, definitely something that I always have a big admiration for. And I'm going to tell you two kind of, you know, quick stories about like women that have shaped me as an individual, and of course, as an individual, they have also shaped me the way that I am as a, you know, as a leader, as a professional. And kind of, you know, the people that know me know that I raced cars since I was very young. You know, raced go-karts, started racing go-karts when I was 5 years old. And I go back when I was like, you know, 12 or 13, racing, and I had there was this girl that I would race against. And, you know, she was tough. She was like super fast. She was a great competitor, right? And kind of, you know, looking back a little bit in retrospect, there's two things, right? And it's been well documented how, you know, children are completely, you know, immune to race, gender, all of these things. And when I was racing her, I absolutely, you know, just wanted to win, right? I didn't care if she was a girl or if she was a boy. And of course, you know, being racing, you have a helmet on, you have a suit on, you cannot really tell, you know, if it's a boy or a girl or whoever it is racing. And again, like looking back, it's like a lot of admiration of her and what she did and her family as well, because, you know, in these events and these championships, there were hundreds of racers, and she was only just one girl racing out there. So, you know, definitely something that, you know, gives me perspective and helps me make sure that I put myself on the other person's shoes, right? And something that I do try to do on a regular basis, whether I'm leading someone or whether I'm leading the negotiation, having a conversation with a client, or tough conversations as well, make sure that you put yourselves in the other person's shoes. And then the second one, just to kind of like, sorry, go ahead. I don't know if you have a...
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then the other one, when I started my career back in Mexico, still in college, I participated in a trainee program at the CPG company, Consumer Packaged Goods Company, and you know, we had this leader who was not part of the C-suite, but she was part of the marketing organization, and she led the market insights, market research organization. So in CPG, kind of like, you know, data mining is kind of like, you know, like mining for gold. So she had a lot of kind of influence. She had a lot of participation in kind of like, you know, the C-suite. And again, this is 22 years ago or something like that. You know, very male-dominated kind of like C-suite. And because of kind of like, you know, she presented a lot of data, you know, very early on got the chance to experience some of these meetings and participate in meetings and have access to the C-suite. And again, at the time, some of this in these situations, you don't necessarily kind of like, you know, digest what you're going through and what you're seeing, right? We're looking back, you know, how she navigated this world, a male-dominated world, how she did it with so much, you know, elegance, and how she did it with kind of, you know, lots of grit and lots of, you know, just passion and tenacity. You know, definitely gave me an insight on like, you know, what is it like to go through that, right? And my wife always reminds me, like, you'll never understand what it is to be a woman. Of course, I'm never gonna understand because I'm not a woman, but I try to, right? And I try to put myself, intellectually, it's tough to accept that I know, yeah, I can, right? Because I think, you know, I have, you know, the intellectual capacity and the emotional capacity to say, like, hey, I can put myself in her shoes, in this case, my wife's shoes, right? But I think it's a matter that you have to accept it, you can't, but that doesn't mean that I always try, right? So these two stories give you a little bit of perspective of like, you know, how I kind of go about my day and make sure that I am incorporating kind of like everyone's, their point of view and where they stand and how I can make them the best version of themselves.
Alejandro, and I know we'll get your questions on the chat so that way we can bring it up before we wrap up here. But so much perspective there, and the sense. I mean, one is you started off with your mother and teachers, and something critical that you said is that helping parents raise the citizens of the world, and I think that that's so powerful, and many of our teachers that are out there, but also the perspective that women in male-dominated fields, right, and the fact that because they may be the only one or of very few, there's this misconception or this feeling, right? We call it sometimes imposter syndrome, that perhaps they don't belong there, they don't deserve. But it takes a community, it takes allies such as yourself, right, to really be able to help support women and all of those that perhaps are underrepresented in their fields to continue to thrive in their careers. And so if any of you are feeling that way, lean on into HACE, into allies, build community so that you can have support for your career. And so all amazing perspective that Alejandro shared. So I know they've got some comments on the chat, and then we've got a few minutes here before we wrap up. Anything you'd mention on the OLA team and the great leadership on the work that's being done?
Yeah, I mean, and again, not only for OLA, but just kind of in general, how it's important for us to make sure that we have certain targets, right? And of course, as a company, we have certain targets of having 50% women representation at the manager levels, 40% people of color, 15% Hispanics and Blacks. So you need to make sure that you have a funnel, right? That you have a funnel and you start at the bottom and make sure that you help people grow. And obviously, organizations like yours, HACE and OLA, we are making the efforts to make sure that we enable the growth of our groups, that we make sure that we are well represented, and that when we provide the tools and trainings, investments for these individuals' careers to continue to progress.
Wonderful. And so a lot of great dialogue. I know regarding some other statistics on women business owners, in terms of women in the C-suite and the representation. So we also dropped Alejandro's LinkedIn profile in the chat, so I know folks will continue to engage, and the video is recorded and will be saved, so we'll continue to share that. So we have a few minutes and we have to wrap up, Alejandro, but we'll continue to engage because there's a lot more to discuss via the comment section. But tell us, what are you most hopeful for, or a positive story that gives you hope for this year?
Yeah, and I'm going to stay a little bit with my racing topic, right? I mean, I think definitely, motor racing, motorsports is a sport that, where women are completely, underrepresented, right? And many kind of races and ethnicities are underrepresented, but specifically women. Really cool initiative, and I'm a fan of Formula One and have been for a very long time. In 2023, there was an initiative launched called the F1 Academy, which is an open theater racing format where only women can participate. Which is amazing, right? So it's sponsored and managed by Formula One. And again, going back to my topic about funnel, right? How are you going to make sure that in the future we'll have a Formula One Women Championship if you don't have enough racers at kind of the basic categories as you continue to go and progress your driving career, to make sure that you have the best talent possible. At the same time, there's another organization that I really admire, which is, it's called More Than Equal, right? Which is it's a kind of like a foundation that was started by David Coulthard, who is an Formula One former driver, and then an entrepreneur called Karel Kromrak, who's from the Czech Republic, who's kind of like philanthropist. And what they're trying to do is making sure that there's going to be one day a Formula One women champion. And I love kind of their motto, which is, we're not trying to make it easier for women. We just want it to be equally difficult. So, I think, what gives me hope is my granddaughter one day wants to be a Formula One kind of, driver. She's not going to have to be a pioneer. She'll be kind of like, in company with many other women racing in Formula.
I love that. I love that. So many key nuggets there, and the connection in terms that applies to all industries, right? Not just here in the Formula One, but the need to be able to have that type of a structure or resource or equity, meaning being able to structure an opportunity so that more people that are not represented can be a part of it, right? So thank you for sharing that example, particularly as we are celebrating Women's History Month, and sharing your time, your insights, and your experience with us. Gracias, Alejandro. Thank you to all of you joining us, and until next time, hasta la próxima.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.